Howdy, everybody. Bob Tallman for No Spin Rodeo. No politics, no BS, just hard-hitting news and rodeo commentary from two of the most trusted sources in our sport. Kendra Santos, Tommy Joe Lucia. Listen up. Here we go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 34. This is No Spin Rodeo. You're welcome to our little coffee table where we sit. We've got the First Lady of Pro Rodeo Journalism. That is Kendra Santos, our producer and official outsider to ask the questions that we don't think about. Greg Teagarden, and my name's Tommy Joe Lucia. Welcome to episode 34. Thank you all for listening and tuning in. We have no idea what all we're going to talk about today, but it's going to be a lot. So we always kick it off with a little coffee time, find out what everybody's doing. Kendra, ladies first. What's going on in your world right now?
Oh, fall has come. The leaves are coming down, although my plants are pretty confused because the spring bulbs are my yard is full of beautiful spring bulb flowers. But I am headed to Oklahoma City for board meetings and rodeo historical board meetings at the Cowboy Hall. And I'm vice president to Rob Smets of bullfighting fame. And it's fun. I'm proud to serve with him. He's a very honest, upstanding fellow. And then we also have our rodeo women. It's called Hands. We have our annual board meeting. And before Donna McSpadden died, she handed the reins of the presidency to me. So those are the two board meetings I'm headed east.
Cool. Grego, what's happening in the what do they call? Is that the Tar Heel area? What is that called where you are?
Yeah, even though NC State's the main city or the main college here, but I finally get to spend some time at home after moving here in June. I'm finally going to get to enjoy it, so I'm pretty happy about that. At least for the next couple of weeks before the NFR. So, and the weather's been beautiful. It actually got to 80 today, so got the top off the Jeep, cruising around. We're good.
New driver's license for North Carolina yet?
No. So technically, I don't live here yet because you're only allowed 60 days to live here before you have to get a license. So
now I know this is going to cause Kendra some whelps, but how did you vote? Not who did you vote for? No, not who did you vote for. Stop.
Right.
How were you able to vote?
I was able to vote, which if I waited till the last minute to register to vote. If I had registered to vote when I got here in June and did not have a driver's license, they wouldn't have accepted it. But because it was such, the voter's registration was only a month old, I was able to use my driver's license from Florida. So
I had an interesting situation. I live in a tiny town, and I went to the place where I have voted since 1995, our tiny little community hall, and all these wonderful volunteers in there. And for one, it's the first time in my adult life that I have not received a mail-in ballot. I don't know why that happened, but we walk in there and they're telling us one by one that this is no longer your precinct and you need to go to town. And, it was really weird. I mean, that's never happened before. And so I was like, I do not have time to get to town and back. I'm on a deadline. So I was able to fill out some special paperwork and get a provisional ballot. And bottom line, I did get to vote, but it was very strange. So
yeah, don't post anything about a provisional ballot because you'll get yourself in a wreck. We're registered in Erath County, the home of many, many famous cowboys. And so we went to Morgan Mill. No, we went to Stephenville this time. We went to Stephenville to the annex, and the voting experience was really great. We got right in. We did walk in with our cell phones first, realized you can't bring your cell phones, had to go back out of the car and dump the cell phones, came back in. Then we got back, and then because of social media, we got cued in that potentially our votes weren't counted. So we pulled up a list that we weren't on, ended up calling the voting annex and everything, and found the Erath County list. And Donna Lucia and my votes did count. So tonight, I have a question. Some coffee time. How many are either one of you going to watch tonight to see what happens, or are you just going to wait till in the morning and find out?
I don't know if I'm going to watch like minute by minute, but I will probably check in at least up until I go to bed tonight.
What about you, Kendra?
Yeah, I'll probably check in occasionally, but I'm going to be packing, and I have so many things to do before I leave at 3:30 tomorrow morning that I will not be glued to the TV. But I've heard enough on the radio in the car and different things that it sounds like we're probably not going to know tonight. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, well, even when they know, the interesting thing will be how this all goes down with everybody, right? And the media, it's interesting, but it is important. So it is. I'm glad you said you're going to check in, because if you told me you were going to be too busy to check in, throw on your socks and your hair blades in your basket into who's going to run the country for the next 4 years.
No, it's very important for sure.
Yeah. All right, cool. All right, so that's coffee time, and I think we're going to run right into feedback now. Here, all you fans, we really love the feedback, and Greg at the end of it will allow you to tell you again how to reach us. And we got a lot of really good feedback again that we really think we need to address, and we're going to see how long that runs, frankly, and see if how far we get into point of view, or whether our point of view is a little bit summarized for this one, because we don't expect you folks to have to sit around. We try to make this an hour. Now, we can talk for probably 10 hours, but we try to make this an hour. So we're going to go through feedback and get that out of the way, then hit Rodeo News and see where we're at for point of view. Does that sound like a plan, crew?
Love it.
Sure.
All right. You're on, Tea Garden.
All right. Our first No Spinners from Wisconsin. Suggested topic: fines for contestants, stock contractors, and or personnel. Are there any you disagree with or 100% need to be in place?
I'd love to take a shot at this one. Oat and I were just talking about this, and he was just talking to some cowboys, that go to the NFR, about every year these days. And Oat was saying, it's so strange. Like in my 14 trips to the finals, I never received one single fine. And then he said, I cannot find a guy today who's ever been to the NFR without receiving a fine. And so, that's sort of interesting. The one fines, there are reasons for fines. So to me, this is absolutely not black and white. And there are things that perhaps are deserving, and there are things that seem completely absurd. And my poster example was years ago when they used to fine Cody Ole every night when he round and round 50 whatever victory laps he took when he was lighting that place up, and he would throw his piggin string into the crowd, and the crowd went completely wild, and he would get hammered every night with fines. And I was, all those years I was in the pre and post production meetings in Sean Davis's office, and I was like, gosh, to me, it's like, that was so great. It was so great for the sport, so great for the fans. And I was like, what are we doing that we don't ask like Lyle's Piggin Strings or somebody to donate 10 so that every night the winner can launch one into the stands? Because I just thought that was just so cool. And so things like that to me are silliness.
Yeah, in the past I've tried to find, so heads up, organizations that manage large groups of people and are called associations. I tried to find a list of fines. I couldn't find one. I found something from CPR. I couldn't find. I flipped through the rule book when I saw this feedback to see, because I figured I could come up with some of the dumb fines, but I couldn't find them. Now, in fairness, I only spent about an hour looking for them, but I couldn't find the list of fines for PRCA guys. Here's what I'll say on fines. I don't know. I have no idea what all the fines are. No idea. Here's what I do believe. If you're going to use, it's the same thing with disciplining kids, I think. If you're going to use fines to redirect poor action, then it seems to me that the fines need to be strong enough that they don't want to repeat the action. I'll give you an example. There was a very famous PBR guy when I was running the PBR that opted to get the fines for not, because they were fined if they didn't sign autographs post event. And he opted, just a given, he wasn't going to do it and put the fine on. And then at the end of the year, he would work out some kind of appearances or something to come. And listen, this is all by the books, right? You want me to at $5,000 for my appearance and all 100 of those fines at $50. My point is, if you're going to do a fine, I think it needs to sting. Okay.
I was there for that, and one word, bullshit. That was such a crock of crap, and you know it. Go ahead.
Yeah, but if the fines added up and the appearance was worth the fee, right? That's just
yeah. It's completely and totally uncool when all the fans are out there and you're too cool to go out there and sign all the autographs. Is that good for business? I don't know. And then you can just buddy up to somebody and get it signed off. I'm sorry, these are people I love that we're talking about, but in principle,
from the fans, I could not agree more. I'm just talking about the policy procedures, right? I agree. But that goes to my point. If it were a $5,000 fine, now I'm not saying that you should be fined $5,000 if you don't sign autographs. But if the fine stung, if there were teeth behind this stuff, so I think a couple things have to happen. Someone should go through this and see what fines really belong, right? And do they belong? And why even have them if they're not going to slap you hard enough to do what they're supposed to do? When we're doing the approvals for our rodeo, I look at this. Yeah, okay, we'll fine them. It's $200. That ain't going to change anything, right? It's just revenue collection for the association. And so, same thing. If you're gonna tell your kid no, and you don't want them to run out in the street, and you just stop them and go, it's really bad if you run out in the street because you could get run over by a car. Or do you grab them up and make sure they know the next time you tell them don't run in the street, don't run in the damn street?
right. This is like, do not cry wolf. And I agree on your parenting also. But I'll say this. When I was the director of communications for the PRCA, and I used to be in those board meetings, and I remember this time of year, here we're coming, that there were playoff events going on. At that time it was Dallas or whatever. And there was a certain someone who was really bad about hitting on his horse. And they were fining him, and it would go from whatever, $250 and then $500. And I'm from the timed event end of the arena, born and raised, whatever. And the person I'm talking about is, I love the guy, but I'm like, the best thing you could ever do as an organization in my book would be to, $500 isn't going to make or break or stop anybody from doing anything. If you said, if this happens, and I don't care if it happens at the very last in modern day vocabulary at the governor's cap, if that happens there, you have a 30-day suspension. And by the way, that means you're sat down from the NFR. And by the way, let's go ahead and let the mainstream media know that we will police ourselves. And in my opinion, we can't afford not to do stuff like that. We are way off. But I'll say one more thing, because you sometimes bring up, about the blue ribbons and participation trophies and all that. When I'm a kid and the rodeo sports news hits our mailbox, there were pages of you don't pay your fees, you let fines run up or whatever. The blacklist was printed in black and white in the rodeo sports news. That would never happen today because somebody would get their feelings hurt or be embarrassed or whatever. Tough beans. That's the way it used to be back when, hey, maybe if somebody was caught cheating, they were taken out behind the chutes or outside of the boardroom and roughed up a little bit, but they didn't do it again. I'll stop.
Listen to you right down my interstate. Look at that. That's good stuff.
That kind of brings the flip side of that. I've noticed a lot of rodeos paying bonuses to get contestants to do certain things. What's your thoughts on that?
That's a good one. Yeah, I've done it. I mean, when you need something done, you figure out how to do it. I've given gift cards to contestants to go greet the fans that, in theory, if I were getting money for sponsors all over my shirts and I were building my own brand as a contestant, I would want to greet the fans. That's the one thing that I'll say for sure about Tough Hedeman is he knew the fans counted. He always knew the fans counted. And he would spend, I've said it before, there were times when we would get into arguments because we needed to take the dirt out of the arena and Tough was still in there signing autographs. And so that's the way
he was the last guy out there every single time. And by the way, if during the day when everybody else was napping, there was something going on at the Dodge dealership in downtown Albuquerque, New Mexico, Tough Hedeman was there with people wrapped around the block. I've been there. I've seen it. It was true. And so whatever anybody wants to say, Tough was last man standing.
I'd answer your question, Greg. Some of it, you got to kind of do what you got to do. But even then, the bait doesn't always catch the fish. So I don't know. There's not a good solution.
Okay. Moving on. We got a note from Colorado. What is the protocol if the first barrel racer of the night slips on the first barrel? Just witnessed this at the Mountain State Circuit Finals. The racer protested, which resulted in the event skipping barrels and going to bull riding. At the conclusion of bull riding, the arena was dragged for almost 40 minutes until the barrel racer in question was satisfied. Does every racer get this treatment?
Well, I'll start. For one, it's not fair, Colorado, to say it was dragged 40 minutes until the barrel racer in question was satisfied because, those girls all get together, okay? Now, let's talk about the formalities of this because it happened at Salt Lake when we started Slack, not this year, the year before. And so what happens, give you a little Dirt 101, what usually causes slipping is what's called a hard pan. It's the ground that they don't get to with the teeth of the machines, and the top looks perfect. And the top is perfect until about 3 barrel racers in, when that top gets pushed back, and then the horses go down. And when they go down to get traction, they hit this concrete floor called the hard pan, and that thing gets pretty darn hard, and they start to slip. Well, it was about the 3rd barrel racer, and the girl slipped, and I right off, I'm like, I hope Spraggins got into the hard pan. Second one slipped a little more. Third one, I walked into the arena and stopped the barrel racing. Now, here's what's interesting. Officially, the judges can stop the barrel racing to answer your question. It's the judge's decision. However, their decision is based solely on the safety of the animal, not on the quality of competition. Hear me out, okay? So that there's a lot more that goes into what I just said than maybe you just heard. Just because a horse slips doesn't mean that it's potential injury to a horse. And so another thing a judge has to figure out, when does the conditions become a situation where the risk of injury to the animal or the contestant is a problem? And at that point, they're supposed to shut it down. Interestingly enough, when they shut it down, everybody that competed before then has the option to rerun. They can keep their time, or they have the option of trying to go again. And so in our particular situation, the judges and I had a conversation, and I shut it down because I didn't think it was safe, and they hadn't reached that point, right? Where it was safe or unsafe, right? And I just said, let's shut it down, fix the ground, and go on. And that's what we did. And so I hope that answers your question. The judges are ultimately responsible for deciding, but that decision is based on safety of the animal and the rider, not whether or not that girl thought she got a fair shake at it, right? That goes back to top of the ground, bottom of the ground. They're changing that up in the NFR this year, right? That's almost like the luck of the draw a little bit for the timed event guys, is that where you're running and how that ground's holding up. I've said this to girls before, don't get me on this. I love the barrel racers, and I don't complain as much about timies and barrel racers as other promoters do. But my point is, the really good ones, and I won't say who they are, but Kendra knows what I'm talking about. Greg has seen them. The really good ones know how to adapt to what they're dealing with and still win, usually. Now, sometimes they can't, because they can't overcome the circumstances. But I can't. That's the stuff that makes me love rodeos. When I watch one of these veterans ride in, and you can tell right off that they're checking their horse down, or that they're taking a step to the right or the left when they hit the barrel. And those are the cool things, right? That's the cool stuff. So
Yeah, and you know what? Okay, so like say also, you're talking about, an example maybe where it got shut down and then rerun from the top, right at the beginning of a rodeo. But for example, I mean, sometimes say, it's over the 4th of July and everything is just amazing. And then on the third day, there's this gully washer and it's deep mud. Well, what you're probably going to see is a Haley Kinsel leaving sister over in the barn and bringing out a young one and kind of loping through it because she knows she's not going to win anything, but they're going to still have it because, if it rains, it doesn't stop the rodeo. So there's that. The other, just a general comment, it's amazing in recent times how many more rodeos do a big drag with a tractor, every 5 or 6 girls now. Like they will stop the rodeo and do that. That's I know how much the barrel racers appreciate that. It's big, and it's so much improved. I mean, not very many rodeos ever used to do that. This it's not only safer, but you can be up 6th or 7th and win, have a chance to win. It's not like you're up 9th or 10th and this ground got so deep or whatever. But the measures that so many rodeo committees have gone to is extraordinary. And I've seen how many times have they brought in like helicopters to try to dry the dirt out. Or I remember at Salt Lake City, you guys took that arena, cleared it out, brought in new freaking dirt. It was like a whole different rodeo. And I mean, how much that was appreciated, how many man hours and gallons of diesel that took. But it was extraordinary because it made it fair and safe.
Yeah, that's why I'm an advocate of rounds, not one headers all the way through. A little bit later in rodeo news, but we drag every 5, and from a producer, I can't stand it. Right. Right. I mean, it's just boring. I mean, it is boring, but it's the right thing to do, and we do it. And I don't like it, and I could decide not to do it, but I think it's the right thing to do. We drag after 5, and later on in rodeo news, I'll touch on it. Fort Worth, who's never done that, has agreed next year to drag after every 4. That's big news. So we'll talk about that a little more in rodeo news. So anything else on that? Or are we good? Greg, you got anything on slipping barrels?
It was kind of established with the Days of 47 a couple of years ago. And so when this happened, I wasn't really surprised at all the way they handled it. And the horse went down on its belly. So it was a pretty deep. You could kind of see she looked back afterwards and took a look at it. So this one's for Kendra from the 406. Wondering how the injured gang, Taylor, Stetson, Kai, are doing and any timeline for return.
Okay, that's a sweet question. Thank you, Montana. I'm assuming they're talking about my son, Taylor, who had 2 hip surgeries this year. He just returned from a checkup in Nashville, and for those who don't understand what Shad Mayfield's been dealing with, it's super similar labrum, hip socket conditions in both hips. Anyway, Taylor is going to physical therapy 3 days a week, working really hard. He's not cleared yet. So it's going to be functionally a whole year off for him, but he's strong and not cleared for full contact, but he's on the rise and feeling strong. So thank you for that. Kai Hamilton is back at it, this time in the PBR and this time riding with a helmet, but he has returned. Stetson Wright, I have loved his answer since he got hurt, and he almost came back earlier, and then he returned to this same standing answer, which is he will return when he is 100%. And I think that's the wisest, smartest, coolest answer, because we really did think that we were going to see him in 2024, and then it didn't go that way. And instead of forcing it, he did what certainly is in the interest of his longevity. So they're all doing really well, and I would be shocked if we don't see a lot of Stetson and Kai around at the NFR, and Taylor too. Those guys, we were talking earlier about, paying people or whatever. It's really standard when people have good sponsorships that they make appearances during the year. Even after 2 hip surgeries, Taylor's going to come in, and he's also going to go to the Golden Circuit of Champions, which is a very dear event to his heart, for the kids fighting pediatric cancer. And I mean, you get a lot of perspective where, a season off of rodeo compared to a kid fighting cancer is, not much to complain about. So yes, all of them are doing well. Thank you, Montana, for asking.
Okay. The next one's from 801. Hello, No Spin. I thought a lot about the circuit system and how it could be more exciting. The Wilderness Circuit, as you talked about, is loaded. It's almost unfair. The Wilderness Circuit holds a lot of big rodeos that the top 15 will go to regardless. Why wouldn't they declare the Wilderness as their circuit? As for a possible solution, what if the winnings were capped, say at 30 grand, or a number that best suits the circuit? Once you're at 30 grand or number 1, now this brings excitement to the circuit finals. If the local guy hits a lick in Reno, Salt Lake, and Spanish Fork, he's right near the top of the leaderboard. The top guys will dominate the weekend warrior over the summer of rodeoing, obviously, but when it comes to 3 to 4 runs at the circuit finals, it's the perfect opportunity for the big fish to prove they are big fish, and a chance for the little fish to show that they were what they were really made of. I appreciate the show and all the insight.
Well, my favorite thing, 801, that you said here, it's a perfect opportunity for the big fish to prove they're big fish, and a chance for the little fish to go win. I love that. So I'll start from the top on this, and then I'll turn over to Kendra. When money counts, which is the current form, I don't think you can cap monies on anything. Okay, that doesn't seem right. I've been an advocate for going from money to a point system. And the reason for that has been because by going to a point system, it would allow you to to amend a lot of these problems by, for instance, if you want more players at small rodeos, you could make them be worth more points if they did something. But that's a whole nother podcast. So I'm not going to get into that. But it is interesting, and we'll talk about it more a little bit later. But at our Wilderness Circuit Finals meeting, there was a contestant panel, and the contestants were talking about this with the Wilderness Board of Directors and the committees. And it's interesting because they were saying the same things we said in All Circuits Busy. And that is, they feel sorry for the circuit guys that don't get in there. We talked about that. But the money that's in the circuit is important. We covered all that already, so I'm not going to rehash it. But, the one thing that I put on my notes when I was sitting there is in the same conversation, they were talking about rodeos in the circuits with turnouts and not enough contestants. Well, okay, small fish. If you want to swim with the big fish, swim up the river. Go enter. Go win. And in watching the Wilderness Circuit Finals, for instance, in the bronc riding, there's a significant difference between the big fish and the little fish in talent. It's just the way it is. when those right boys nod their heads, there ain't very many in the pond that can swim with them. I don't give a crap what horse they're on. So, yeah, I think you'd have to have more conversation specifically on what you're talking about on limiting it and what counts and what doesn't. But I think this is a very complicated situation. We didn't work it out, and all circuits busy. I don't think it's going to be worked out anytime in the future. And we would have to start the conversation all over the pros and cons of it. Kendra?
I didn't really understand the part or the concept of capping the circuit earnings. Didn't really grasp exactly what that was meant, but capping earnings, just the sound of those two words, I don't love just right off the get-go. I love ideas being tossed in from people for possible solutions, and sometimes even just one tiny little piece of somebody's idea will stick and help provide some progress. The one thing that where you said about the points, when we were both working for the PBR and they went to a point system, it was my clear understanding from my cowboy friends that that was being done because at the top of the standings, guys were winning a lot of money, but it plummeted really fast, and there were only a few guys with impressive money, and then it dropped way off, and that was in part to not let it show that people in the top 40 or 45 were winning 25,000 a year.
Yeah.
Tell me I'm wrong.
No, I mean, yeah, that might be a little bit. I'll tell you the push on my side, which what made sense, is that the World Finals needed to matter. Okay? There's nothing worse than going into your championship event and the buckle being won, right? What's your storyline if this guy's got such a lead because they paid out so much in the regular season events that he can't be beat? And so, the option was to put a lot more money in the World Finals, money, real gold Benjamins, or to try to figure out a way to stack that World Finals where, great competition when it matters, Super Bowl, right? I mean, again, in the NFL, you can be the greatest football team all year long. If you don't win the Super Bowl, you're not the champion. Now, I'm only
but you also can't minimize your regular season, or you're really going to destroy a lot of the smaller rodeos, especially. The thing, okay, so on the money though, I feel like a point system does make it easier to somewhat hide the fact. I mean, money's money, so that's profit margins are hard to come by in rodeo. We all know that part of it, but point systems kind of feel like putting lipstick on a pig to me in that part of the conversation for that aspect, because okay, but
so what
but also and I'll also say this: the NFR has done a damn fine job of doing exactly what you're saying. This 11 or $12 million, whatever the actual contestant payoff is at the NFR. No lead is safe going into Vegas. They have put their money where their mouth is to make that finals be very big deal. Everybody, 100% of the Cowboys now know that no lead is safe. And it's the gold buckles will be decided there, but everybody's good with it because we're talking about a ton of money.
Well, I know we got to be really honest, and we want all the fans to see what the pig looks like without lipstick. But the pig's a pig. The flip side of that is, guess what? This guy is, and it's really changed in the last few years, but there was a time when this guy, we're really proud of the fact that this guy went to 126 rodeos, put 350,000 miles on his truck, went through 6 horses, and he won $32,000. The same amount that somebody got paid to hit a golf ball 300 yards to one hole. So, do you promote that, Kendra? Right?
A spade is a spade is a spade. Let's tell it like it is.
Okay, onward.
Well, I was going to say that at the circuit final we did this weekend, there was only 3 bareback riders, and apparently it was due to the fact that a lot of the circuit guys didn't make the rodeos. So
in the circuit,
yeah.
Yeah, Stetson's a good example. It's kind of cool that these circuit finals are between the end of the season and the NFR. But I remember having this conversation right here on No Spin after I saw Stetson get hurt at the Wilderness Circuit Finals and going, is that a business decision? So I was wondering if that didn't play in, that especially in bull riding and bareback riding, I think it's probably less in timed events and maybe even bronc riding. The chances of getting injured aren't a freak injury type thing. But yeah, they had 7 bareback riders at the Wilderness Circuit Finals, which was enough to fill the show, but they didn't have the 12. So yeah.
All right, from the 252, I appreciate the inside scoop on pro rodeo this podcast provides. I've listened to every episode and always learning something new. The conversation on the circuit finals was very interesting.
Thank you. That's awesome. I think we were even amazed at how much, circuit conversation came out of episode 33. You start compiling all of it. It's a major factor in the rodeo game in 2024. Pretty cool. Thank you for the feedback.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right, from the 210, while 4-H is a very deserving organization and impacts millions of youth around the world annually, they're actually not the organization that benefited from the Cody Johnson team roping. The Texas FAA and a Different Day Foundation were the beneficiaries of the roping. Cody Johnson got his singing start through the talent contest at the FAA, or the FFA, not the planes. And his future wife was in the audience watching him on stage. She is not in the video, but she mentioned it in an interview. In a pretty quick search of the web, you will find a video of Cody singing at an FFA convention as a teen. You will also find a video of Cody honoring his high school ag science teacher for the positive influence he had on his life. I love No Spin Rodeo and anxiously await your new episodes. I'm hoping I'll get to see you at the South Point during the NFR. What's your plan for the NFR?
Let me address if I said 4-H, I'm just going to laugh at myself right now and own it, because I absolutely meant FFA. And by the way, Cody Johnson himself hired me to write the announcement of the Kojo, his inaugural roping this year. I went all into the fact that Different Day, which is Brandy's passion project to help women who need it in all aspects of their lives, and that the Texas FFA, which is very near to them as part of their youth, were, yes. And the rap story that I did after the event also included this fact. And it's like, yes, Cody first caught Brandy's eye when he was singing in an Texas FFA talent contest. And she said to her friend, "Who's that cute bull rider with the broken leg?" And, that's where she first laid eyes on him and was sweet on him. They didn't meet actually and take up with each other for a few years later, but Texas FFA, brain freeze on my part. I apologize if I said 4-H, I don't even know. My kids had wonderful youth experiences in both organizations, and they're both amazing for young people. But Different Day and Texas FFA were the charities of choice for Kojo's first ever Kojo Open. And they raised a fortune, like $750,000 for those organizations. So it was super cool.
Well, you are listening currently to a star green hand. That's right. I was a star green hand in FFA. And lost a lot of money on my pigs, and went to stay in parliamentary procedure and wore, I'll be honest, I really hated wearing that jacket. I'm just saying, sorry if that bothers anybody. Wearing that blue jacket did not make me happy, but I did wear it. So we love FFA. But the last part of this feedback is, what is your plan for the NFR this year? So I guess we better just break the news. What do you think, Kendra?
Go for it.
First off, we want to say a very big thank you to South Point and Mr. Growney. We set up No Spin last year right in the main hallway at South Point, right by the side, right where you walk to go to breakfast. And we knew everybody went there, and we did it on purpose. And we had some amazing interaction of friends of ours that would just walk up to the table. And it was really authentic. It was really, really cool. It was really cool. Now, we had the opportunity this year to move to Cowboy Christmas, and we're going to be in the new Commons area, Cowboy Commons, it's called. It's a place for people to visit, which is perfect for our show. There'll be a stage called the Scent Stage there. And from 9:30 in the morning until 10:30 each morning at Cowboy Christmas on the east side. This is all new, by the way. All of you fans, you know how hard it was to find your way in? Well, the whole east side's been redone where the Tesla tunnel is, and you can get into the trade show from that side. And there's a big atrium there, and we'll be on stage there every morning from Thursday till Saturday from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m., followed later on after us is Rump Chat. And so that's where we'll be. And we're excited to say that we will be video podcasting this on the Cowboy Channel Plus app. So if you want to see if I have a booger hanging out my nose or Kendra's lipstick isn't on right or whatever, you'll be able to watch us live and in person. And the nice thing is about the Cowboy Channel Plus app, which I love, is it'll be video on demand. So you can go back and watch it later. But here, last thing, and then I'll quit talking a little bit. You know, we're in election season. How many people are so tired of these ads? Like, to the point of throw your glass at the television if I see another one.
Television, your telephone.
Yeah, the text. You know how many times I've like, no, block, junk, no, block, junk. Anyway, I just want to say, from the bottom of my heart, if you want to make rodeo great again, we challenge you to come to our rally. We have a rally every morning, 9:30 to 10:30, Cowboy Commons at the convention center. Come. If you're a no spinner, do us a favor, show up and say hi and shake our hands and let us know you listen. Let us hug your neck and thank you. So there you have it. That's the announcement on where we'll be. But I'm going to miss that hallway at South Point.
Lipstick on a pig is all I took out of what you just said. So I'm like, well, I'll be putting on my lipstick if anybody wants to see lipstick put on a pig. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Finally, we have from the 435 NFR tickets. Why are they so hard to get? How do you get them? And is season tickets an option?
Well, I can come in here and then Kendra can. This is what is fantastic about the NFL, is it's been sold out for a long, long time. There are season tickets available, and there's a list as long as the wall of my Utah home that I'm in to get season tickets, and they're pricey. Season tickets aren't an option, but I'm going to give you a few ways to get tickets if you don't have them and you show up in Vegas. The first thing that's new this year, I think it's this year it's new, is that the NFR has created what's called NFR Access Only Ticket Platform. That is exactly what it is. It just gets you in the building. It doesn't give you a seat. However, when you're in there, it's a concourse only ticket, and they've got a bunch of those, and those are out there. And you can go to the Cowboy Corral in the concourse and watch the rodeo, or you can go to the Cowboy Channel Bar and watch the rodeo, or you can hang out, or you can be one of those people that comes around and looks for someone that didn't show up and sits in their seats and waits for them to come tell you you're in my seat. But you can do that. Also, StubHub is the official provider, like ticket reseller, official. Now, in the rodeo world, there are a bunch of ticket resellers out there, some of which I've known for a long time, cowboys and people that have got their hands on tickets and resold them. There's a bunch of in the family resellers out there, but StubHub, if you go to StubHub, National Finals Rodeo tickets, groupings, and you'll find some tickets for performance. They're not cheap, but you'll find pairs of tickets at StubHub. The last way, which I'm not endorsing, but it is an option because we deal with it in the fan zone every year, There are ticket resellers out there. Their pants are usually hanging down a little lower than the average Wranglers. They kind of got a swagger to them. They'll buy some tickets from you and they'll sell you some tickets. I'll tell you this, in looking at it, because I found it interesting, I don't think they really come off the price of the tickets until about halfway through. That's what I think. They hold their ground. Now, I'll say the first weekend, that's really the case. They really hold their ground. The last Saturday night, closer to the start of the show, they're ready to unload those tickets. So, again, I'm not advocating buying it from these people, but I'm just giving you some options to get tickets. But you know what? Thank goodness that that's sold out and that it's a ticket in demand. And I'm pretty darn sure that that's the reason that the NFR did not go to the big building where there's 20,000 seats and stayed there in the Thomas and Mack, is because that hard to get tickets a good thing in the live event business. Any other suggestions, you two, on how to get tickets?
Well, I will say I have known quite a few people who've had some luck at the Cowboy Christmas NFR Ticket Exchange. Um, tickets do turn up there, and I know it's hard to plan a trip around, you want to have them in your hand right now, but there are a few cautionary tales. Well, one, on the season tickets, those things are passed down generations. Those are left, in people's wills. Harry Vold's family still sits in Harry's seats, so those are really hard to come by. There's nothing like being in that building, but there are watch parties everywhere that I think, people have gone to great lengths to make fun and convenient. Do not be burned by scalpers. Every single year, I know people personally who buy tickets from scalpers and get to the door and get turned away because they were not legitimate. I will say, I haven't returned her call yet, and I need to, but Terry Wheatley, her husband Jim was an NFR team repper. Her son Wade was an NFR team repper. She's the one who started Tough Enough to Wear Pink. She left me a message the other day. She said, Kendra, please warn people that there are these, pop-up social media things on Facebook, especially for the 2024 NFR, and a number of real deal rodeo people have been burned buying tickets on those this year. They're not real. It's not legit. So be really careful on any social media site. Hackers and just deadbeats have taken over the rodeo world every day. It's like, how many fake accounts does Haley Kinzel and Caleb Schmidt and everybody, like, I get them all the time. I get them for myself. I get them for my kids. It's ridiculous. But these pop-up deals, they're dangerous and smart. Terry Wheatley is a freaking business boss, and she got burned for a lot of money. So look before you leap on those sorts of things. And these people that usually, if you really look at their site, they might have 18 followers, and it'll say, they're from New York, and they've locked their profile or whatever. They're not legitimate. So be very careful.
Yeah, we went at Days of 47, we switched to digital tickets because of the fraud. And the backlash of digital tickets for old timers is big. They want tickets in their hand, right? They want that paper ticket. They don't want to have to go to the printer and print it. And I get it. But the fraud is huge. And digital tickets eliminates that. It really does. Now, interestingly enough, people take screenshots of tickets and try to sell them online. And now, there's the older ticket platforms still do a static barcode, but the newer ones like Access and Live Nations and stuff, they're animated barcodes. So you don't get in on a picture. You got to bring it up, and it's got to be real-time moving for it to read it. And, even legitimate people that think they have their tickets and they're like, I'll take a picture of it, I'll scan it when they get in, and they can't. So ticketing is a major deal. The nice thing about the digital tickets too is the resale platforms. If you go to Access or whatever it is, Live Nation or StubHub, and you go to their resale, those things are in there they're real. They won't put them on if they're not real tickets in the resale of the StubHubs and the official ticket outlets for these events. So if you see resale tickets on those platforms, not, Ariana Putin's website from Kosovo, but yeah, so good points. Good point. I should have said that, Kendra. Great point. Be careful. You can get taken advantage of. Love that. Love that.
All right, that's it for the feedback. And remember, you can text us at 817-668-2395 or email us at nospinfeedback@gmail.com.
We're running 51 minutes into this. Kendra, let's hit some rodeo news.
Okay, well, I was just going to bring up a couple things that I think are very, kind of big highlights, in this case, a low light. Bull Rider Creek Young, he broke his femur at the Cinch Playoffs in Puyallup on September 7th, and he is just doctor's release the NFR, which is, that's tough stuff. But he knows he's not going to be ready, and I really applaud him, knowing he won't be ready, so he would be risking further injury, and also knowing he wouldn't win anything, but really a gracious, classy move to say it now, so that 16th place Dustin Bouquet can be ready and not get that call 2 days before it starts. This was Creek's fourth qualification and will now be Dustin's fourth NFR also. And just so, I guess we're all thinking about Creek. I feel like it's a lonely thing when you're home and, everybody's busy, and it's a lonely place to be because kind of everything is stopped for him right now. So I just would love to say that, we are all thinking about Creek, and but good for him to do what he just did, because we've all seen it's rough when somebody goes knowing that they probably just can't do it, and maybe they attempt to get on in the first round and then they sit out 9 rounds when the 16th place guy is at home. That's unfortunate for everybody. So we're thinking about Creek Young. The 2024 National Finals steer roping just went down in Mulvane, Kansas. Cole Patterson won his 3rd world championship at his 6th NFSR. Cole's the son of 4-time world champ Rocky. Rocky blew out his right ACL in March, so he set out this season. But congratulations to Cole on a 3rd world title. 4-time world champion Scott Snedeker just kind of threw the old Hail Mary. He won the 10th round and he barely edged John Bland and won the average. And that's Sned's 4th average title also. And he won over 82 grand, which is pretty great for the steer roping finals, and is second only to Cole's 85,000. That's a record from 2021. Snedeker also moved up to being this year's reserve world champ. Thank you to the PRCA for another record payoff at the NFSR. This year it was 525,000. 550 is promised for next year, so they'll keep moving it up, which is appreciated. And the PRCA also announced in Mulvane that steer roping will be part of the playoffs in 2025 at a limited series of rodeos. I think they said 15. But that's appreciated. And steer roping, though it's not a standard event, it takes us back to our ranching roots. And, when you need to get one doctored out in the middle of a pasture somewhere, those are handy skills. And so it's old school, but it's cool and it's appreciated. So I'm not going to rehash every circuit finals, but there were a couple things that happened over the weekend that that were highlights for me. And one was Derek Begay and Coulter Todd. They just had a really tricky, awkward, unfortunate situation happen where Derek made it in the 15th spot in the heading for 2024. So he makes the finals. They won the NFR average last year together. They're best friends. And Coulter at the last run of the season in San Bernardino, it didn't go their way. Coulter was 1 out in 16th. So they just won the Turquoise Circuit Finals together, which qualifies them for next summer's NFR Open. Neither one of them is really committed to what they're going to do next year, but that was kind of a nice little happy, consolation situation to what's going on. But talking to both of them last week, those guys are as cool as they seem. They're so they have such perspective, and ranching is their thing, cowboying as Big A put it, but they're great human beings. Anyway, and follow up to our episode 33 conversation on the circuit system. I thought it was interesting. It's interesting follow up that Louisiana's Tristan Martin won the steer wrestling and Texan Riley Webb won the tie down at the Wilderness Circuit Finals over the weekend in Utah. Episode 33, if you haven't listened to it, we tore the circuit system conversation wide open. So listen to that if you're interested for more. But congratulations to everyone on who had circuit success in 2024. And there are some more circuit finals left to go. But for me, those were personal highlights. And I know that you have more to say about the Wilderness Circuit Finals, right?
Yeah, I've got a few things. Wilderness Circuit Finals. There's 48 rodeos in the Wilderness Circuit. Salt Lake is one of them, so I'm close to this circuit. And so I thought I would announce the top 300 contestants vote on rodeos of the year in 3 states, Utah, Nevada, and Idaho. And I wrote down the Utah ones. Small rodeo of the year, Eagle Mountain, Utah. Congratulations. Medium rodeo of the year, Pleasant Grove, Utah. Large rodeo of the year, Salt Lake City, which I was really kind of shocked that we got it. I'm very honored and thankful that we got it. Now, there is some conversation about small rodeos, and I think it needs to be addressed. Well, let me finish. I didn't write down all of them, but large rodeo of the year in Nevada was Reno. Congratulations, Reno. Large rodeo of the year in Idaho was Caldwell. Great rodeo committee, great rodeo. Congratulations. But there was some conversation about they bulk these into 3 groups, and there kind of needs to be a super rodeo category because the large rodeo category encompasses everything. And I don't know the exact amounts, but it throws a bunch of rodeos in with the Salt Lakes and the Renos and all these that add a lot of money, and it probably does need to be looked at, and I think it will in the future, to give another category in there for some deserving rodeos that don't really have a spot. But then we had a circuit meeting, and there were some interesting notes that I thought no spinners would love to hear. And the PRCA during this meeting spit out some facts, which I thought were good. 6,665 members. Remember, we were talking about that? 6,665 members. Permits the highest in the history of the PRCA permit holders this year. $80 million in prize money in 2024. That's a lot of money. We were bragging on the PBR's money. That's a lot of money. $80 million in 2024. $3.5 million increase in prize money this year from last year. 851 events. This is what I thought was interesting. 690 are full rodeos. So those are those other specialty events, specialty approved events with some restrictions on them, but 690 full rodeo events. The other interesting thing that came in conversation was breakaway roping. The PRCA basically said breakaway roping will probably never be a standard event in rodeo. And the reasoning was that they can't keep men out of it. And we kind of had this conversation. If you put Riley Webb in a breakaway thing, I mean, I get all of that, but it's hard for me to balance then how it's done in barrel racing. Sorry, maybe someone will explain that to me. Why would barrel racing? Why would barrel racing not have the same problem of letting men in it? Because we've had stories in the past on No Spin of very, very fantastic barrel racing men that have improved the sport. And so anyway, it was said that it wouldn't be a standard event. Will not.
But maybe they're just saying standard in the PRCA. But
yeah,
I mean the WPRA, and it's called women's barrel racing. So the WPRA seems to do fine with that.
They do, but barrel racing is a standard recognized event in the PRCA.
All right.
Women's barrel racing, right? Isn't it? Isn't it a standard, considered a standard? Maybe it's not.
I don't.
Maybe
I
this,
don't know any rodeos that don't have barrel racing, but I don't. The idea about the men wanting to enter the breakaway, I don't know why you couldn't just call it women's breakaway roping. So I don't really understand that part.
well,
But then, then again, I was just told that a friend of ours was running for the school board because the guy he's running against had spent a lot of money to put tampon machines in the boys' bathroom at the high school. So we're not into politics or BS. So sorry I even said that. Go forward. What in the world? Go ahead. Let's get back to rodeo.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. The other interesting tidbits that I thought I would throw out there, because I thought they were really good for more people to hear. They had a contestants panel up there, and one of the rodeos asked the contestants, what can rodeos do, both good and bad, for the contestants? And I thought they were great. I pulled out some of them. The one that was funny was, do we have to put up with weekend cowboys with badges? And let me explain that a little more. You got these guys that rodeo professionally for a living. They show up, and the local volunteer who's pure-hearted was told to park them here and tell them this and tell them that, and they're just doing what they're told. And they tell this guy who knows how much room he needs to turn around his trailer, how to turn around his trailer. So that was one of the things that they said is hard for the guys going down the road. The second thing were really simple things, rodeo committees, and that is put out more trash cans. I agree with that. We're trying to we live in our trucks and trailers, and even when I go down the road in my pickup, I have 15 water bottles, and there's one trash can there and it's overfull. Put out more trash cans. That's a good one. And of course, the comment came up, which we've seen on social media, about dumping your trailer, unloading all the shavings. And the contestants were really gracious. One of their points that was very valid, and that is these athletes, our animal athletes, are sometimes more than 50% of what we do. And we're not going to make them, it's unhealthy for them to stand in manure and be in those fumes. Granted, understand that. There were some suggestions, which we've done at Salt Lake, where we've had FFA and 4-H go out and clean trailers. And they said, if you have wheelbarrows there, most of us will haul it and tell us. It's all about communication for a lot of these contestants. You need to make it real obvious if there's a dump pile, right? Try to help them make it easier, to make your jobs easier. Now, they admittedly said there are going to be some bad apples in the group that just don't care and are going to clean out their trailer, and we get that and understand that, and it was very appreciated. But they said, look, if there's a way that we can do this better, just like we don't haul wheelbarrows. Well, I understand that. Where are you going to put a wheelbarrow? They got to haul hay and everything else. Wheelbarrows being available, most of them will put it in a wheelbarrow, but you got to communicate. So there's the wheelbarrow. Now, where do we put it, right? Where do you want us to put it? So all of these things, it was really good conversation between committees and the contestants, and the contestants were great. They commented about, people entering and not entering. And so I just thought that was hats off to all the contestants that participated, took time out of their day to talk to these committees. Again, it's about communication, talking, and, simple little things like, hey, if you put more trash cans out, we'll use them. Well, yeah. I mean, we got to throw our trash out. So I thought that was great. And a couple other little rodeo news things that I thought I needed to get in. And one of them is that, let me think here, the WPRA, they're a very family group, and they have an award called Lifetime Family Heritage Award. And they've announced the winner of that. It'll be presented on December 5th. But the winner, this year's recipient of the Lifetime Family Heritage Award, is the Flynn family, Lynn, Denny, and their daughter, Ariana. So congratulations. There's a long list of winners of the WPRA's Lifetime Family Heritage Award, and I think that's cool, and congratulations to the Flynn family. And the other one I touched on before, the WPRA worked out a deal with Fort Worth. I think we've been asked this. Fort Worth's working out a deal with the PRCA. I think it's done. It is going to be a PRCA, and it is officially, with the release, a WPRA event. And what I thought was interesting on it was a couple things. Fort Worth will increase the prize money more than $30,000 to $153,000 for their tournament-style rodeo, for the WPRA barrel racing and breakaway roping, both equal money. And the other one that I mentioned earlier, they're going to drag with 2 tractors after every 4 barrel racers. This is big change. If you know the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo, they are cemented in tradition, almost to the point of locking them up, if you know what I'm saying, right? The tradition there is rich. When you're at the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo, we've talked about me being there when I was a little kid. But for them to do this, that's a big thing. Hats off to the WPRA for advocating it for their competitors. Hats off to Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo for recognizing the need and being willing to do it. I said it earlier, as a promoter, there's nothing worse than having to shut down and drag a ground. But congratulations. I'm glad they increased the prize money. So that was my rodeo news, things that you did not beat me to today. So
I think that's super cool about the Flynns. Like, everybody talks about Denny Flynn and what a bad cat he was, and how he gave Donnie Gay a run for his money, back in the day. And that he was, I think he didn't travel nearly as hard. Isn't that the book on Denny Flynn? But he was the world-class, extraordinary bull rider. And then Lynn Manning, NFR barrel racer, and what a great name, Lynn Flynn. But their daughter Ariana, she's out there breakaway rope and barrel racing. She's everywhere, and it is a pretty cool family that they have, and for a heritage award, that's cool.
Well, that's cool. Well, so that's it for rodeo news. Now we do have a topic for point of view, and so I want to pitch it out to Kendra and Greg. We can run through this topic pretty quick and hit the highlights and revisit it if you want, or we can table it for the next No Spin. What are you thinking, Kendra?
Hadn't really looked at the clock.
And our listeners are loyal, so
well, let's just at least mention it. You can't say that and then that's like saying, "Oh my God, did you hear?" and then not saying it. So, we can at least tell them, give people some food for thought. So we were wanting to have a conversation called 6 Sides to Every Rodeo Story, and basically meaning for every single rodeo that we have, there are to be considered the rodeo committee, rodeo contestants, stock contractors, contract personnel, sponsors, and fans. And when we talk about all the time, compromise or the impossibility of making every single entity, happy all the time, even the difference between guys who go all the time and circuit people or whatever. But those 6 entities, basically every single rodeo has, it needs to be considered in the equation as a very important part of the equation. You don't have a rodeo without them. So, that's just something interesting conversation.
Well, I think it's very interesting, and you did a fantastic job pulling those out alone and highlighting them is something to consider, No Spin listeners, right? Let's repeat what I think, and I would agree with Kendra, are the spokes of the rodeo wheel. The rodeo committees, the athletes or contestants, the stock contractors, and the stock, right? Meaning both. The contract personnel, the sponsors, and last but certainly not least, in my opinion, are the fans. So, Kendra, if you want, I'm just going to go through and tell you a couple points on each of the 6. Then we'll let you wrap it up, and we'll call it a day. And we may need to revisit this. How does that sound?
Probably. And the thing, okay, so maybe better yet, if you're going to hit on something on all 6 and you're well equipped to do that, especially in the family you come from, probably better me to just whip through a few ideas from the contestant's point of view, and then you hit on all 6. That's totally appropriate, a better order. You be the cleanup guy.
You go for it.
Okay. So like if you're a contestant and you're contemplating entering a rodeo, How much money is added? Will I official it or will I not? Am I just doing it for money? Do I need to get a green horse out there? Or is it a rodeo I need to count? I want to count toward my official rodeo count. Is there a run of rodeos that would make sense with this rodeo in it to where, logistically? Does the setup suit my horse if I'm a timed eventer? How's it gone there for me before? Every guy has places it's like, it seems like he cannot win, or else maybe he feels like he cannot lose. He always does well there. Everybody I've ever known has rodeos like this. Um, Odds of winning, including factoring in, okay, who's the stock contractor? How hard does that person work to try to make it fair for all the contestants? What are the odds of on the time event cattle? Is it where every single year every check's 1 on 3 steers, the same 3 steers, because they run them 4 to 5 times, whatever. This is all things that contestants factor in. So now we're trying to just hit high notes and roll here. So you go.
I think you hit everything. The one thing that I heard in that contestants panel that's important to contestants also, that I'll just throw in here, is the hospitality at these rodeos. And that's not necessarily just, Fort Worth served hot dogs and chili for as long as I can remember. Like, that's what you got in the contestants hospitality room. But interesting enough, some of the WPRA contestants stuff said, these places that have tents and stuff, a place for a family to go that's different than the trailer and safely hang out makes a difference on whether or not contestants enter these rodeos. The other thing that I think gets caught in the wind, and I'll do a little explaining for the no spinners that aren't as deep in the woods as we are, 1 headers versus 2 headers, right? Versus rodeos with championship rounds. A 1 header, everybody competes on 1 animal for all the performances, and the best one wins. That makes it really flexible for contestants to come in and out. But the drawback to that is they got one shot with their draw to win. They don't have any more opportunities to win money. It's more flexible.
More of a drawing contest, as they say.
More of a drawing contest. And so 2 headers, these contestants look at 2 headers. 2 headers are important to them. Do they have to come back for a short go? Like in Salt Lake last year, you had to come to Salt Lake 3 times, technically, right? Slack, preliminary rounds, and finals. We've dropped that down to 2 this year. So how many times do they have to come in? So those are things, a 2-header for non-official rodeo people, for Billy 3 strings, pig and strings. You get 2 shots with 2 rounds that pay money in each one of those rounds. So you can place first and win a little money on your second attempt. And even though you had a disaster your first attempt, right? And so that gives them more shots at money. It spreads the money out, which we've had conversations on. Spreads the money out, but it also gives people gas money and chances to win more money on a 2-header. Like from a production standpoint, 1 headers, no, I don't like it, because I don't want the crowd to sit there and see a leaderboard of people that they did not even see, right? So, you watch the round, you watched it, you paid money to buy a ticket, and you look at the leaderboard and nobody tonight won. Fans don't want to do that. They want to see a winner. We want to see a victory lap of that performance. So I'm just giving you different ways to look at it. That's not necessarily from the contestant standpoint, but I don't like to see a leaderboard where half of them didn't compete that night.
Which one thing on the one thing that you did just say, regardless if it does happen to be a 1-header, which I think at least I'll say the timed events prefer more than 1 head, simply because you don't have to draw the best one to win something, but you can have a victory lap at a 1-header if for the best person that night.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean anything. Yes, you can. You can say
the crowd. A lot of people in the crowd don't realize. They don't realize they saw this guy win. This is our winner tonight. They do it at Reno. They do it at a lot of big rodeos. Where you don't have a.
Don't put up the leaderboard then, because hey, here's your winner tonight, and by the way, they're not even in the top 10 of the rodeo. Just a flip side of that.
The big screen has what's going on, but the announcer's all about the guy in the arena making the victory lap.
I'll beg to differ on that, but that's okay.
It's okay.
All right, so
Okay.
we got contestants out of the way. Greg, do you have anything on contestants on the pillar?
No, I mean, it's interesting listening to Kendra talk about how they look at rodeos. I've never really kind of thought of it that way. So thank you.
Next spoke, Kendra, you lead it.
Well, rodeo committees, you that's most of these are in your wheelhouse.
Well, I'll just say this, the foundation, and I believe this, the foundation of our sport is attached directly, and you said this, Kendra, to all of the volunteers and these committees that work their butts off to put on a rodeo so contestants can come. Now, the flip side of that is the contestants want to be appreciated that they chose your rodeo. Agree with that. But remember that these there's not very many rodeos out there that have a full-time paid staff, and they go out and put on darn good rodeos, and they're the ones promoting our sport, and they're volunteer based as a whole. Remember that these committees that are donating their time, they just want to pay all their bills, right? They they what are they? They're going to give any money to charity or put it in the bank so that if they lose a sponsor next year, this stuff is not easy. So if you go to your local rodeo, do me a favor, and if you see a committee person, thank them because they deserve it. They deserve it. And a lot of contestants will go up to a rodeo committee and say, hey, when are you going to add more money? Well, that's a little easier said than done, right? Because especially in our economy today, finding people to if you look at the sponsors and they get a banner in the arena, you got to ask yourself, did that banner actually sell any tacos at your Mexican restaurant?
You know
And
what though? Everything you say is true, and also what you just made me have a flashback. Harvey Camacho is no longer with us. He was a committee man for a very long time at Red Bluff, California. Wonderful guy. Communication, which you brought up earlier this episode, and it comes up all the time with us because it's always important. Back in the day, there were more ranch type people on rodeo committees, and in this day and age, a lot of those people have died off, and town has grown, out into the country, and things are a little bit different. So sometimes they just don't really know, and if you can bridge the gap with the communication. Harvey Camacho called me a number of years ago now from Red Bluff during Slack, and he goes, Kendra, this committee, I'm telling you, they would add equal money in the team roping. If you can can you call two guys that are here at Slack that are well spoken and would be intelligent and nice to talk to our committee with me? I'm telling you, this committee would do it. Well, for whatever reason, it was like I looked like who was there that day, whatever. And I sent Walt Woodard and David Key were willing to go talk to the committee, and they sat down for 20 or 30 minutes, and by golly, the next year they had equal money in the team roping. And I'm just saying, like, they weren't doing it because it hadn't reached them that there was like a problem or whatever. And so agreed. And I will also say though, on the gate guy that you brought up before, committees have a nice person working the gate. That's not that fun of a job. But when a guy is going back and forth to the Cowboy parking lot and you ask the same guy, every single time he goes to warm his horse up and rides back through for his PRCA card about the ninth time, it's possible that he might, he's probably a really nice guy and he's probably really tired and maybe he just drove all night, but you don't have to ask him for his card on the ninth pass through.
you kind of do. I understand the rationale of what you're saying, but let's talk about the other side. This podcast is going to be 6 hours long. The thing is, if I tell a gate guard, here's who gets in and gets out, and that gate guard starts deciding whether or not he should look at the credential or not, that's a problem. That's an insurance problem. That's a liability problem.
You don't recognize somebody on the eighth pass through when you said, hi, buddy, how are you? And I just got here from...
You either have policy and rules or you don't. But when you start to color in gray, you start to open up opportunities for bad things. So I say to people, and I've been frustrated. I've been the guy that's trying to get in, and I run the event. I'm the boss. And they're like, sir, where's your credential? And I have to bite my lip and go, you're doing your job. Let me find it and show you. So let's not go there. It's another podcast, but they're doing their jobs, Kendra. And these people aren't, the volunteers aren't even getting paid, and they're trying to do what's right. And really, everybody's heart's probably in the right spot. And let me tell you something. Have you ever been at a back gate for 8 hours, you personally?
Yes, sir. Actually, my youth was spent at the back gate taking head ropes off and letting people out of the gate at Oakdale, California. Yes, sir.
What about the parking gate, the back parking gate?
Oh, no, I didn't work the parking
People come
gate.
in and they just drove overnight. Understood. They're very tired. They're very angry. They want to get done. And that back gate guard's like, can I have your name? Because I have a list here. Are you a contestant? Well, I understand from the contestant's point of view, they look back and go, no, the 66-foot trailer I got on the back with 45 horses in it. No, I'm trying to sneak in. I get that point of view. The flip side of that is that gate guard just needs to make sure that the parking that they have assigned gets to the people that deserve it. So it's not as easy. It's like the circuit system. It's not as simple as, oh, come on, just let me in. All right. Keep going.
We better roll on. Stock contractors, what you got? And keep it quick because we need to get out of here.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot. I have a different perspective on stock contractors. Now, let me start this with the animals, including the timed event animals and the rough stock, are just as important part of rodeo as the athletes. I don't care what anybody says, the humans. They are just as important. I don't think anybody argues that. The money that the stock contractors put into their animals, which is why at Salt Lake we make an effort to do bonuses and pay. Now, there's been a change in the stock contractors' role at the smaller rodeos. They're really running it, the production. It's kind of lapped into their lap of the production, and all they really care about is how fast they do the rodeo. And if their stuff bucks, because they're stock contractors, and I get that. So they're very important. They probably need to be compensated. I'm glad they're still making it. There's still people that want to get in the business. There's stock contractors that are legends with legendary bloodlines of stock, and now there's stock contractors that are just rich guys that bought a card and are throwing a lot of money into it. You can get angry about that, or you can take the money. But there are guys with a lot of money that come in, buy it. They're now walking around as a stock contractor. So that's a whole nother podcast. Say what you want about stock contractors, Kendra.
It's all right. I just the one thing, super brief, is that there's sometimes the basic three-way between committee, stock contractors, and contestants is not fully, the circle doesn't fully connect. But let's keep moving. Everybody deserves a voice at this table, but don't just take one person's word for it without checking with other people that are involved in this equation. Let's go to stock contract personnel.
Yeah, I think they're the most underappreciated part of rodeo. Maybe more underappreciated than the volunteers. Let me tell you something. Contract personnel don't turn out. They show up at your rodeo and they entertain the fans.
And they also know what they're going to be paid and have a hotel room provided for them if they want one and don't stay in a trailer. They know what they're going to get paid when they show up too. Just full disclosure. Go ahead. They're great. My friends. Go ahead.
This is true, but they're going to be there and you're going to get to watch them when you buy the ticket. I think that other than San Angelo, there's a couple places in this country that are so pure that the overall fans only care about the competition. But generally speaking, the entertainment value from everybody from 92 to 2 years old has to do with the contract personnel. The entertainers, the announcers. Listen, I think the music is the heartbeat of a live event. I tell in my production meetings, the announcers are the face of the event. And we've all seen it. We've all been to rodeos where you know, you can see that the contract personnel may not be what you're used to or whatever, but it's important, right? All of it is a part of the package. It's the full circle that you talked
Yes.
about.
And music is the heartbeat of a rodeo. And by the way, I'm getting on that plane tomorrow. And this weekend, we're going to induct Mac Altizer of Bad Company rodeo fame, that was the pioneer of the music at the rodeo that was beyond the brass band. So
And
let's not forget where we came from on that.
I agree with that. Yeah. So we'll just leave it at that.
Sponsors.
I'll just say this for rodeo committees out there. The PRCA is working towards non-exclusivity. It's always been the case where if you're a PRCA rodeo, there were these sponsors out there that have the right to pay you what the PRCA says, and they get in your arena. That stuff's going away. Here's what's going to happen in 2025. If you have a sponsor, a PRCA sponsor that you had 12 months earlier, you're asked and required to give them first right of refusal. In other words, they get a chance to match it if they were a sponsor the year before. If they weren't a sponsor the year before, you don't even have to take it to them. Okay, interesting. The other interesting thing that I don't know how this fits in, but I think it's interesting. Graphics. Greg manages the Piranha team. The Cowboy Channel next year, they're going in, and this is kind of out of the script, but I think it's very interesting. The PRCA is meeting with the Cowboy Channel, and they're going to go in and look at ratings or report cards on all the rodeos that were on the Cowboy Channel Plus. And they're going to not just grant someone the airtime because they've had it in the past. They're going to look at these report cards, and these rodeos that have put in more effort to have a better broadcast may get a time slot that a rodeo that just had it because they've had it is going to get. The other thing that we'll see if it really happens, the Cowboy Channel, Greg, you'll find this interesting, will now take a clean feed and will put their own graphics on supposedly every rodeo that they put on. Now, I don't know how they're going to do that and if that's a reality, but, that affects the committees because their sponsors, they don't necessarily see the graphics because the Cowboy Channel will come in and put their own sponsors. And by the way, that's normal. The way they've done it in the past, where your rodeo sponsors just get on national television, that's not normal, and it's not the way it was going to be forever. This is a hard pill to swallow, but the Cowboy Channel's got to sell the broadcast because they're paying the PRCA for the broadcast rights. So I think that that's interesting, and they're going to, I don't know how they're going to enforce this, Greg and Kendra, but they're going to ask all the rodeos live to use their graphics package. So there's consistency. So I understand that. That makes sense that you go to a professional rodeo, you see professional graphics. I don't know that will be a reality. It might be a lofty goal, but we'll see.
Well, that's interesting because we use our graphic package was designed by the Cowboy Channel. And then they gave us...
Actually, Piranha designed the graphics panel that everybody uses.
Yeah, but what they did is they gave us a base and said, this is what our graphics look like. And, back then the PRCA said that we need to have PRCA here and you can put the rodeo sponsor in this location. So...
And the only other thing I'll add to sponsors, if you're out there, it's hard to sell sponsorships, Kendra, right? You know that. It's hard to sell sponsorships. I love it when someone tells you, hey, it gives you something else to sell. Thanks a lot. That's what I need is more inventory. Maybe give me a buyer, right? Rodeo committees are out there probably slamming the steering wheel going, you got it, right? There's not a lot of money out there to be won locally in the shoot signs, but the committees also need to put a little more effort into figuring out how to help that sponsor. What are their goals? Do they want to sell tacos? Do they want exposure? What do they want? And figure out something in your show. I think we do a good job, don't you, Greg, in Salt Lake, in packaging different things that the sponsors need, whether it's social media or live integration on the screen. The signage is important. It needs to stand out. You need to be able to see it. It's got to be consistent. So those are the ways that you sell more, you get more money for sponsors, is actually them seeing a benefit. And most of the sponsorships, Kendra, in the rodeo world are relationships. Yeah, it's just like the cheerleaders program, right? Yeah, we'll give you 250. We don't think we're going to get anything out of it. We'll give you 250. We got to change that moniker and let them understand that, hey, we're selling out rodeos now, and those are actually consumers and buyers. So sorry, but that was a long one, but it was important, I think.
Okay, well, last but not least, the fans, and none of it happens without them.
You know how I am. I think the fans are usually number 6 on this list when they should be number 1. And I don't think that you disagree with that, Kendra. Here's how it works. Fans come to the event, they buy tickets. That's true. That's part of the revenues. But the sponsors and the growth of the overall Western lifestyle is driven by the fans experiencing something that they love and becoming a fan. Not just a person that attends the rodeo to see who divorced who and who's at the beer stand standing by the blonde. It's the people that become fans, listen to No Spin Rodeo, get engaged. I talk about IndyCar. We went in IndyCar. I didn't even know which way IndyCars went. I didn't even know what IndyCar was. I didn't know anything about racing. And 3 years later, I was actually a fan. I was watching races because I understood what these athletes did to win. It's the same thing in rodeo. We need to create true fans. And the PRCA is reaching out to the rodeo committees and saying, we don't care what size you are. We want your local content. We want to promote you. That's cool, Kendra. We want your stories, and we promise, Paul Woody, we promise we will put them on the PRCA platforms and we will tell those stories to the world, because you and I, Kendra, know that the secret sauce of rodeo is the conversations behind the timed event shoots and behind the buck and shoots and the family aspect. And that's how we create fans. They should be number one priority in rodeo.
It takes everybody for the wheel to turn. That's for sure. We love rodeo. We love all of it. I have enjoyed this visit very much. And on the hospitality deal, a special hug and kiss on the cheek for every single person who sees Taylor Santos on their sheet and has a gluten-free option, because that poor kid would like to starve to death out there on the road. He can't eat anything. So thank you. So there are a few, like, especially sweet women who are like, well, we saw Taylor come, and so we made some gluten-free blueberry cobbler, and it's like, oh, thank you.
That's cool.
Anyway, the volunteers, God bless them.
Yeah. Houston's the crown jewel of hospitality for contestants, no doubt about it. They have the money to do it. They do a great job with it. But, just to wrap this up, I said that this is a wheel with spokes and there are 6 spokes, and you spoke to that earlier in your comment. It takes all of these 6 to make it work. So all of these 6 should be working together and working problems and solutions and needs. The contestants' needs, the committees need to know what their needs are, but the contestants need to understand what the committee's needs are to make the sponsors happy. And we all need to try to help each one of the spokes support that wheel so we keep going round and round. Final say.
I think I got a plane to catch. I've enjoyed this conversation as always. We don't seem to be able to stop talking once we get off on something, but this is important, and we love all of it. So I appreciate the conversation.
Well, thank you, Greg, for putting us together, making us look good, sound good. Thank you, No Spinners, for spending an hour and a half with us. We hope it was worth your time. We've got another one of these. Maybe it's a holiday version before we go to the NFR, Thanksgiving version. We got another one of these. And then we challenge you to make rodeo great again. Show up 9:30 a.m. at our rally. I'm calling it the No Spin Rally at Cowboy Commons. Join us. Thanks for attending. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks.